Today, we're looking at a brown ink from the Atramentis, El Greco or Maron. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps in the description down below, so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram. And if you're new here, I do fountain pen ink reviews every single day, so I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Greco brass sport with a broad nib. I wrote with it for a day and then used it to take the notes for this video. This first writing sample is done on a standardized set of paper of Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia. There are additional writing samples later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial, something like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. Now the extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some nice shading going on. Quick starts as a mid-tone, gets light, gets very dark at the K. Brown starts darker, gets lighter. Fox goes from lighter to darker, over from lighter to darker, nice, and 11 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some nice shading. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark. Brown starts as a nice mid-tone, gets dark at the end. Same happens to Fox. 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both, far left to far right, do show some good color variation, and we do get some. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade rather nicely. Fox is lighter on top of the F and darker on the bottom of the F, is light into the O and very dark into the X. Brown starts darker and gets lighter. Quick goes from dark to lighter to dark. Nice, 15 seconds to dry. Medium is slightly lighter than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some decent shading going on. Brown starts lighter, gets a bit darker, gets very dark at the end. Fox starts light and gets dark. Over starts lighter and gets dark. 23 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both, looking far left to far right, does show color variation, and we do get it in the writing. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some nice shading. The goes from light to dark. Quick goes from dark to light to dark. Brown goes dark to light to dark. So nice. 13 seconds to dry. Now medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading is there, it's not as obvious, like brown starts darker, gets lighter at the W, dark at the N. Fox starts dark, lighter on the O, darker on the X. It's just not as easy to spot as it is with the extra fine. 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both, far left to far right, does show some color variation, and we do get it in the writing. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this gray on the bottom that's pushing up and a dark brown at the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And the gray on the bottom is very into that paper, very there, not moving. It's showing what's going to be the permanent aspects. What's very interesting to me is the brown that moved up is a significantly lighter tone than what we saw in the first chromatography, which makes me say there's a lot less brown than I thought. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I go to the lowercase h that has a bunch of blowout on it, and I don't know, that's 3 days though. I probably don't use it just for that, but I think it would be safe to use in a note-taking situation. Water has very little effect on this ink. You see that right at the H There is where the dot was. The dot was on the H. It really didn't move much, but the absolute darkest of tones. Pen flush is starting to break it up, but it is really not doing it. That gray that got into the filter paper, very much there, very much not moving. 1/3 bleach solution is starting to truly pull it out. It is leaving some staining on the page. With that said, that just means try this in a more inexpensive pen before you go to your, $300 pen to make sure you're not going to stain the barrel or converter. I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I've linked that video and put that in here for you. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. The Atramentis Maron has a viscosity of 2.31, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. The Atramentis Maron has an average dry time of 16 seconds, making it normal. Instead of finding inks that look like the Atramentis Maron, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. So I went with a nice magenta, being this is a brown. I chose Krishna's Granade. The second writing sample is done on Life, Levenger, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at Life notebook paper. We get no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some nice shading. Look at brown, starts dark, gets light, gets dark. Fox goes from light or dark to light to dark. So it's nice, and within short words you're seeing a couple tone changes. 9 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, still very nice shading. Look at Fox. Lighter at the top of the F, darker on the bottom of the F. Light into the O, a very dark on the X. Brown goes from dark to light to dark. Very nice here. 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both far left to far right does show plenty of color variation, and we're getting it. How about Levenger? No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. Some nice shading going on. Because of it still being a rather darker tone, it's harder to spot. You have to find your very dark letters. Like the is very dark compared to the words around it. The K in quick, very dark. The R in over, very dark. So it's more a matter of it has some very dark letters, and 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit lighter than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading shows up better. Look at brown. The top of the B is light, the bottom of the B is dark. Lighter into the rest of brown, very dark at the N. Over starts light and gets dark. Nice, and 10 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show us some color variation, not as well on camera, but far left to far right, it is there, and it is there in the writing. Last up, Franklin Christoph. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and the extra fine, lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some shading. Look at brown, starts dark, goes light. Quick, starts light, works its way very dark. Same with over, starts light, gets very dark. And 5 seconds to dry, a more absorbent paper. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, still very nice shading. That K, very dark. Brown starts dark, works its way light. Over is much darker than you would think, but my being able to see it in person, I see it lighter at the O, and then it gets dark at the V and stays dark. There is some very nice shading in here. It's harder to see on camera looking at the screen. I hope it comes through in the video. 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the medium shows no color variation, although we do get some. Same with the extra fine, really shows no color variation, although we do get some. And that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of the Atramentis El Greco? I think it goes down much darker while you're writing, but it lightens up as it dries. You can also sometimes get a little bit of shading out of this ink. Now this brown is a fairly flat brown most of the time, but when that shading comes out, it looks pretty nice. So what nib and pen is going to give the best writing experience? A very wet pen is going to put down a lot of ink, make it much darker, and drown out any shading that you had. But a dry or medium flow pen will give you the opportunity to get a very nice tone and some decent shading. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.